Dana Bass did something great today. She really bucked Senator Rick Scott when he lied about the Biden administration cutting Medicare. I want you to listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Let's talk about your midterm agenda. Democrats say that one of your proposals, which would sunset all federal legislation after 5 years, jeopardizes Medicare and Social Security. You've previously said that those programs need to be preserved, reformed, and protected. So just a simple yes or no. Do Republicans want to cut Medicare and or Social Security?
Absolutely not. And the Democrats just cut $280 billion. All Democrats in the Senate and House voted to cut $280 billion out of Medicare just 2 months ago. And then they want to say Republicans want to cut something.
I just want to correct the record. The Democrats' plan, which is now law, it didn't cut Medicare benefits. It allowed for negotiation for prescription drug prices, which would ultimately bring down the price and the cost for Medicare consumers. But I want to ask the next question, which is about raising the eligibility.
Can we just finish that, though?
Sure.
It cut $280 billion out of Medicare. That means we're going to have fewer life-saving drugs. It cut $280 billion out of Medicare. They can say they did all that. They cut $280 billion out of Medicare.
It did not cut benefits.
It will reduce life-saving drugs.
Now, let me tell you, folks, I want to show you something, first of all. From Cap Action, MAGA Republicans plan to force Social Security and Medicare cuts. Here it's Rick Scott, America Rescue Plan. The chairman of National Republican Senatorial Committee, Rick Scott, released a plan that would sunset Social Security and Medicare after 5 years. So they have it already in writing. If you doubt it, here is his plan on the internet. And here's this area that I will highlight. All federal legislation sunsets in 5 years, meaning they have to be reauthorized in 5 years. Every 5 years, they have to vote on Social Security. Every 5 years, they have to vote on Medicare. If a law is worth keeping, Congress can pass it again. In other words, every 5 years, they're going to negotiate on folks and whether we're going to give them health care or not, whether we're going to give them Social Security or not. The reason you don't want to negotiate this stuff every 5 years is you want to take Social Security and Medicare as much as possible out of the political realm so they can't fight about it like they fight about the national debt and all these other issues. So no, yes, these guys are planning to cut Social Security. But guess what? Johnson from Wisconsin, he actually said, we need to sunset it every year. Let them vote on authorizing Social Security every year. Let them vote on authorizing Medicare every year. What do you think that's going to do? If they're in a little bit of a budget crisis, they need to buy more guns for somebody else. Where do you think that money is going to come from? They're not going to always do it on spending the money on deficit. They'll cut all of you guys because there's a lot more money in Social Security that they can really siphon off of.
Let's talk about another part of your plan, which calls for permanently extending the 2017 Trump tax cuts. Many economists say that could make inflation worse. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office says it would add almost $3 trillion to the deficit. So how is that fiscally responsible?
Well, here's my experience. I cut tax and fees 100 times as governor of Florida, and my revenues grew, right? Revenues grew with the Trump tax cuts. They didn't go down. They grew with the Trump tax cuts.
I wish here that Dana Bass had gotten back to this stuff about when he talked about, revenue increased. Revenue increased when we had the $1 trillion tax cut. Because if we go ahead and we take a look specifically on what CNBC had to say. They said, U.S. tax revenue as a proportion of GDP dropped the most out of any country in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development in 2018, according to the report released Thursday. That's largely due to the $1.5 trillion GOP tax cut President Donald Trump signed into law. The tax cuts dramatically altered the U.S. tax landscape for the first time in decades by permanently slashing the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%, temporarily cutting individual tax rates and state and local tax deductions. And here it shows you that we are way down as far as tax collection. We are a country that is no longer forcing these corporations who live on us to go ahead and pay so little. What was the title of the article? U.S. lost more tax revenue than any other developed country in 2018 due to Trump tax cuts, new report says. So you can't believe the lies these guys talk. They kind of fuddled the information by saying, oh, there was actually more money collected. But if you have an economy that is larger, you may get some more money collected, but as a percentage of. In other words, other people paid more taxes, but as a percentage of the entire tax base, corporations paid next to nothing. Let's be clear, folks. These guys are the best liars out there, and unless we call them out intelligently, they will continue to do and lie. The problem is there are not enough people in their base that hold them to challenge. They're poor. They're many of them are poor and still voting for these guys that will support nothing that actually helps them. Folks, we have to be there for our brothers and sisters. We have to be there to make sure these crooks, these liars, these economic thugs are not continued to be in office. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.